Hello and welcome everyone to the inaugural edition here of the Social Circus. I'm Rocky Brown. With me today for the first episode, Gregg Brown. Gregg, how are you doing?
My phone hates me, so I'm cutting it out, and I do apologize. But I'm wearing a tie because I want to be classy. So you got to take the good with the bad.
You look classy, and if we lose you, Gregg, we'll make sure to get you right back here for the very first episode of the Social Circus. Guys, what we're doing here, we're going to cover local, statewide, national tweets and Facebook posts and all that fun stuff and give you a little bit of analysis of what's going on. We really like to do this stuff, so let's get into it, Gregg.
Let's do it.
The first thing we want to talk about is the Buck Bailey tournament. Guys, we had the privilege of, being able to commentate the Buck Bailey tournament on January 27th. It was a really good time. Crestview had an outstanding showing. I think they had 6 wrestlers in the finals. 4 ended up winning. Gregg, that's pretty impressive for a program that is just kind of still in its infancy stage.
They haven't been here a long time. When I was coaching at Crestview in 2013, 2014, I remember the program starting up and, still getting its legs. The DeSalvos have come through, the Hardenbrooks. The Hardenbrook just got his 100th win. It's nuts to think about. Stratton wins the 182-pound weight class at the Buck Bailey. They've turned from a very young program to a very good program, and it's impressive to see.
Hardenbrook also named the MVP of the tournament. Another outstanding wrestler that night was Landon Talbert. I think he was on the mats for a very small amount of time. That Crestview ended up being the tournament champion too, a team tournament champion. They scored 155.5 points, so congratulations to them. You can't say enough about them, Gregg.
It's our alma mater, so a little bit of bias by me, but I'm impressed by him, and I like to see what the future holds for him.
The next thing we want to talk about, a tweet from our very own Anthony Hardwick, the voice of South Range. Bree Modick, the countdown is on. It's at 9 for her to tie the 3-point field goals record this season. That was as of February 1st. Gregg, even when we were younger, you may have not seen the pure shooting ability from the ladies. There is definitely a women's revolution.
We were talking about that before we came on. It's not just a wrestling marketing thing they use with this women revolution to market their women's division. You can watch all women's sports and just see the unbelievable progress that these athletes have made in basketball and especially track and field. Goodness gracious. We're not a big area for basketball. We're not. We don't have a lot of size, but what we do have is a lot of skill.
And we lost Gregg. We'll get to the next tweet right now. Pretty big tweet. Peyton Remish of the South Range Raiders. We're going to stay in South Range. He has accepted an offer to play at Slippery Rock this upcoming season. Those that saw Peyton Remish play, you could tell he's a big physical back, just steamrolling people in the playoffs. A major part of the reason why that team ended up going so far in the playoffs as they did. They had an excellent squad there, and Peyton Remish was a very important part of it. Sticking with local guys, Mark Wade of the Girard Indians, the quarterback there, he received an offer from Dartmouth. It's a huge offer. You can tell the kid's excited. He really wants to play. It's just awesome to see the local talent get the recognition, so to speak. Definitely something we enjoy watching, Gregg.
He's a great athlete. He was able to run for a lot of yards. I think he broke 1,000 after that playoff game. Threw for a lot. Accounted for, I believe it was 82% of their touchdowns, either through the air or on the ground. There's not a lot you can say other than just this may be just the first offer of many.
Yeah, it definitely could be. I know he had an unofficial visit with the Ohio State Buckeyes, I believe, too. Definitely a top talent there in Girard. Hope all the best in the world for him as he continues, his football career in the future. Stepping out of local, Greg, there was a story on the internet not too long ago about Charles Thompson Jr. And his friend, I believe it was Shaquise.
Yep.
He bought him an NXT belt. It was just a heartwarming story. And during the Royal Rumble, the WWE had him and Shaquise. They brought him over. They got to meet Randy Orton. I know AJ Styles, John Cena. They gave him a couple of belts. Sorry for those noises. With live to tape stuff, it can get a little crazy. I had a cat stepping on my Mac computer, so that's unfortunate.
Hey, I keep disconnecting. First episode, we're gonna work out the kinks.
Yeah, right. We got to work out the kinks. But yeah, Charles Thompson, Greg, can you talk a little bit about this? It was definitely a touching moment to see. It got a little dusty in my house watching it.
And some of our listeners know, I have a young son. He's 8 months old. And in the last 8 months, becoming a father, I have become maybe the most emotional man that I've ever been in my life. So I remember watching that for the first time, and he gave me the NXT belt. And, I had to turn it off because I was like, oh, and it just welled up with tears. And, for the WWE to get wind of this, and I remember just the responses from their workers and athletes and, administration there. And then to bring him in and have him meet everybody, goodness gracious, somebody's cutting onions in my house right now.
Oh, yeah. That kid's definitely on the right path, too. That young man, he's doing it right. He's doing it right for sure. Now to take a step to national a little bit, a bigger step to national, Greg. Something odd that we had seen this week, the signing of Emeka Okafor to a 10-day contract to the New Orleans Pelicans. It's very strange.
He last played in 2013 in the NBA. He was in the G League in Delaware last year, trying to overcome injuries. But if this was a 30-year-old guy, I'd get it. But he's not. He's he's about, 35 now?
35, yep.
There are a plethora of young talent out there, and you're going to sign a guy who hasn't played in the league and going on 5 years. Hey, maybe they saw something. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't judge, but it's nuts to me.
That tweet from Shams Charania, I hope I said that right. He is a Yahoo basketball insider over there. I remember back in the day when it was Dwight Howard and Emeka Okafor, the debate for the number one pick. I remember being I'm a Magic fan. I'm sitting there. I'm like, Emeka has the collegiate background, certainly. Howard, he was an unknown entity, but definitely had that build, that physicalness to him. And I remember, switching back and forth between the two. Obviously, Howard has had the better career. Okafor, if they're looking at him, maybe 10 minutes a game just for defensive purposes, maybe it works out. Maybe they just brought him on just for a publicity stunt, I guess, with Cousins out for the season now. I don't know. We'll see, though.
You lose Boogie, you need to replace him with somebody athletic, not a 35-year-old who's probably on his last legs at this point. It's a weird business move. That's all I can say.
Getting to a big trade that happened recently in the NFL. You had the Washington Redskins sending a third-round pick and Kendall Fuller to the Kansas City Chiefs for Alex Smith. And this is kind of the progression of tweets that we saw from Kendall Fuller. You see the awkward first posted. Then, he's saying he doesn't think it's him. He's trying to find out. Man, I'm safe. I ain't getting traded. And then finally, he puts up the picture of Homer Simpson backing into the weeds as he finds out he's traded. It's good that he can have a sense of humor about it. Unfortunately, he was the one that got traded, and it's an interesting thing to look at. A player not even knowing he was traded, very odd to say the least. But it wasn't the only time we saw that. We saw it happen, a couple of times here this past week. It wasn't just Kendall Fuller. Granted, Kendall Fuller had a better, better take on it. But then, right after that, as we put up the tweet from Waj, ESPN, the best, he is the best NBA beat writer newsbreaker. He is the Adam Schefter of the NBA. He puts up the Blake Griffin trade, and that's how Griffin found out. He found out via Twitter and everything. So, you take a step back from this stuff, and it's. I mean, how do you feel about it? They expect the high conduct and the loyalty from the players, but maybe they're not giving it back.
At the end of the day, it's a business, and everyone who's in sports knows that. But to go 5 months ago and sign him to that mega deal, that 5-year max contract, and then we're going to make him a Clipper for life, and to cut ties this quickly baffles me. Especially, I know he has injury concerns. I know that they're a selling team right now, but why would you sell Blake? I don't get it. Maybe it's not loyalty, maybe it's a business move, but at the same time, I think you got to expect to at least take care of these guys a little bit, especially after a deal like that and, everything you said in the media.
Yeah. I mean, they brought him in the summer to I don't know the name of the arena there, but where the Clippers play, and they had, a banner. I think it was his jersey retired, and they announced, Blake Griffin, Clipper for life. I mean, it just seems like the teams need to do a better job of informing the players when stuff like this happens. Definitely, I don't think it's fair to not tell them first. For them to have to find out via social media, things need to change. Maybe policies need to change. Something needs to happen because it's really disrespectful to people that they put their bodies on the line.
I mean, think of the last tweet you just talked about too with Kendall Fuller. Redskins didn't notify Kirk Cousins until the next day. It's not just like an NBA situation. It's not a good look.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. But to some happier notes, maybe. The birthday of the legendary Nolan Ryan happened on the 31st. You can see this post from the Houston Astros. Gregg, what was your favorite Nolan Ryan memory?
I know what yours is, so I'm going to let you take it. But for me, I'm a big stats guy. And no one's ever going to touch 7 no-hitters. Nobody. But the more impressive thing, in Nolan Ryan's career, he took a no-hitter into the 7th inning or later 24 times. The closest person to him was ever Randy Johnson at 11. You're never going to see another pitcher like him. And the Mets traded him when he was 20. Let's just remember.
Yeah, they've got to be kicking themselves for that. Obviously, my favorite moment is that moment when Robin Ventura charged the mound. Nolan Ryan at the time with Texas, he was in his 40s. Ventura in his 20s. Ryan put him in a headlock and gave him a couple shots. It was interesting. I mean, why do you charge Nolan Ryan anyway? He never had the greatest control. I mean, he's kind of scattershot a little bit, but it was.
Buck went out go bull and it did not work.
Yeah. It was definitely a fun moment to see. I'm sure they're both good sports about it now, but that's such a legendary moment in the history of Major League Baseball. The next tweet we're going to look at, guys, is from Chris Haynes of ESPN. Sources have been saying LeBron James could meet with the Golden State Warriors this offseason if they clear enough cap. What does this do to the NBA if LeBron James ends up signing on with the Warriors?
It kills it. It kills the NBA. I don't think he'll do it. I think that's just his people putting out that info. But you never know.
I mean, to me, it just... I mean, I know LeBron came out later and said, those aren't true. It devalues what, we're trying to do here in Cleveland. I mean, but, it seems like this is where the NBA's headed. Just let's have one super team. They can win it for 4 or 5 years, and then we'll move on. Oh, another super team, 4 or 5 years, and move on. I mean, I enjoy watching the NBA. I enjoy, for DFS purposes, for entertainment purposes. But when it gets to the playoff time, I kind of tune out. For the last few years, we've kind of expected it to be the Warriors and Cavs hitting up each other in the championship game, and that's been kind of disappointing for a fan of especially of a fan of the Orlando Magic. Next week we're going to look at, guys, Rusev saying being eliminated from the Royal Rumble, was disappointing, but being eliminated from the KFC Rumble, devastating. Something we talked about, the surprise that the Rumble may have fell flat. I thought the Women's Rumble had much more surprises, and that's really what the Rumble's, built on. You had Ray, yes. But the KFC Royal Rumble had Ric Flair. So it was an interesting Royal Rumble to say the least. But I don't know what there is to say about it, Greg. The Royal Rumble, it fell flat in a lot of ways. The women's match was good. Rousey coming out at the end, it kind of saved the show a little bit from being one of maybe the worst Royal Rumbles in recent memory.
See, the men's Rumble match got a good rating from Meltzer, got 4.5 stars. I don't know why. I love the ending, obviously, with the Shinsuke going over. But for me, there wasn't a lot of surprises. Ray was great. Hurricane was a good surprise. But other than that, it was just bland. The girls' match, what I hated, too, and I actually got an argument on Twitter with somebody about this. He called me a Sasha Banks hater. And it wasn't the fact that I was hating on Sasha Banks. It was the fact that she was out of the match for 40 minutes of her 53 minutes in it. Like, why was she out of the ring? It was just bad booking.
It's so they can then say, so-and-so lasted 55 minutes, and that breaks Sasha Banks' record mark of,
Yeah, it just, if you're going to be in the ring for 53 minutes, you be in the ring for 53 minutes. You're not going to keep going to the outside, roll to the outside. That's all the Rumble match is all about.
Yeah, I was confused that they had a lot of women go to the outside instead of, kind of sit in the corner. We see it all the time with Rumble matches, but yeah, they had them go outside the ring. It was a little different feel. Rousey definitely saved the night. They had the right winner, Asuka winning. Rousey coming out at the end, kind of saying she's going to challenge the one that Asuka doesn't challenge. A good little moment though for WWE fans. Getting to the last tweet we've got for you tonight, guys. Jason Stark, the legendary Jason Stark, talking about the free agency period right now, the offseason in Major League Baseball. 13 teams haven't signed a single free agent position player to a Major League contract. Greg, there's a lot of reasons that this could be, but what do you feel like is the reason for, this slowdown period in free agency?
My only guess is fiscal responsibility. We've seen, especially in baseball, these unbelievably exuberant contracts of the last couple of years of people getting hundreds of millions of dollars. And I don't think teams are willing to spend that anymore because the product that they're getting back from some of these players has been lackluster. So when you got guys like Mike Moustakas and Eric Hosmer still available and Yu Darvish, and they're asking prices so high, teams are going to go, we'll just roll with these young guys. We pay less, maybe we get the same product. We don't know. But instead of spending $130 million and maybe getting 22 home runs and a 220 batting average, they're going to take the chance and go with the young guy.
One thing I'm seeing a lot of in professional sports, it seems like GMs never want to be the one that makes that big mistake because they know it could cost them their job. I kind of feel like Cleveland was doing that the past few years. They kept trading out of high pick spots when Wentz was on the board and Julio Jones was on the board before that, not wanting to make that big mistake. Instead, trading back, settling for something, saying, okay, we'll take this. We're still building. We're building other positions. I keep my job, essentially. I feel like that's kind of the way now. And, I thought at first maybe that this free agency period was kind of held up by the signing of Yu Darvish, but he's got 6 teams. There isn't that many people waiting on him to set the market, really, I don't feel like.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%.
I was going to say, those broadcasting classes really paying off, Monty.
Yeah. No, honestly, though, there hasn't been a market. The people who signed early weren't really extravagant signings except for Colorado making the super bullpen with Wade Davis and bringing in Brian Shaw, which I don't think is a good idea. But that's where everyone kind of went towards was relief pitching because when the Indians got Andrew Miller, that kind of switched the mentality of how people run their bullpens. And it's kind of left the money not for the position players right now.
Yeah, Shaw is a fly ball pitcher, and they're taking him to Colorado. I mean, he gave up some dingers for the Indians this year. Might not be the greatest thing to have him.
My son may be able to hit a home run at Coors Field.
What's that?
I think my son could hit a home run at Coors Field.
He might be able to.
He might be able to hit one off of Brian Shaw because he just lays him in there sometime.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week of the show, guys. We hope you guys continue to tune in. Hopefully we get better. Hopefully we get some more stuff to talk about. As Gregg's disconnected. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you. I'm planning on doing a show for the NBA trade deadline live, kind of covering the tweets of the beat writers of America, kind of putting it out there, and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully we'll do that this week. But thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.